Clio Renner, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here.
When did you first start playing keyboards and was it your first instrument?
Yes, it was my first of many instruments that I trialled. I think I was 6 years old when I started lessons. Me and my brother and my sister, we all started at the same time. I grew up in Clifton Hills, so we just had lessons just off Gold Street. And I just remember like my brother and sister was sort of like, we can take it or leave it. And for some reason, it was just something that I stuck at. I had an intrinsic connection with it immediately.
Was there a family piano at home?
There was a family piano at home, but not a family piano player. So I feel like it's sort of, I don't know where it came from. I couldn't get off it when I started lessons, just loved it.
Once you started getting into the piano and you were getting a little bit older, who were the artists that made an impact on you?
I think as I was like developing my taste, it was definitely like the songwriter pianists probably that were the most like inspirational. So Elton John and Rufus Wainwright and Regina Spektor, Kate Bush, like Kick Inside era. Definitely players who like accompanied themselves in a way that wasn't just like basic chords, like orchestrated and fully arranged parts really, sang to me and really inspired me in what I wanted to do and the way that I wanted to write music.
Were there albums that you played the death out of?
Definitely Poses, Rufus Wainwright, The Kick Inside, Rocket Man, Goodbye Yellow Road, definitely. That's all those are the main piano player albums that I loved at the time. Yeah.
And when did you decide that you wanted to actually be a performing piano player?
As like an artist or as a session player?
What was the thinking?
Well, in the era of like loving those artists, I was just like definitely on the trajectory of like wanting to be a solo performer. Going to Port Fairy Folk Festival as a teenager, just like seeing like Anne Brand up on stage and Kate Mulhakey and just being like, cool, that's it. That's what I want to do. That's exactly where I want to be. It's cemented in my mind. But, and then I went to see Grizzly Bear play at Vivid Festival in Sydney. It was just like, I might have even still been at uni or it could have been directly afterwards, back when I did cool things. And the way that the band was positioned on stage, like had the core members of the band like up the front, and then at the back, like almost in the shadows, but still in the center of the stage, there's the session keyboard player who wasn't like an integral part of the band, but like hired gun kind of thing. And he was sitting in this sort of like keyboard cave and had like the upright piano on one side and the B3 Hammond on the other side and like synths stacked everywhere. And I was just like completely drawn to him and just watched him the whole evening. And I remember saying to whoever I was with at the concert at the time, I can't remember, but I was like, I want to do that. That is something that I want to do. And since then I feel like I've just been living with this like beautiful conflict, like who is like what's really at the heart of what I want to do and who I want to be. But I think I'm sort of managing to do both of those things pretty well at this stage.
So what was your first professional gig?
A professional, like paid gig? I played in this big band when I was in high school, which was, I don't want to like brag or anything, but we were very good. And like we won all these competitions and like played these corporate events like at the Grand Prix and things like that. But I wasn't getting paid at the time, but there was this like, what do you call someone like this? Someone who sort of scouts artists and come into my company and I'll give you
A&R guy.
Yeah, that kind of thing, but more for not for like really, really cool things, more for like corporate-y kinds of things. But I was sourced by this guy and gave me his card and he got me a gig playing like standards like cocktail piano at the Atrium Bar at the Sofitel. But I was only like 16, so at the time I was just like, all right. All my friends have got like jobs at Hungry Jack's and Macca's and I get to go to this like posh bar in a cocktail dress and like play piano. That's pretty cool. And looking back on it now, I'm like, that was really cool. Yeah, so that was my first professional gig, paid gig.
What about mentors along the way? Have there been people that have helped you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. As a child, you know, finding my voice and whatever, like Bob Settergreen was like, he was definitely one of the first people to be like, I see what you're doing, and that's like, that's good, that's really nice, and I'm going to encourage you to do that. And he introduced me to Sue Johnson, who was also another amazing piano player, and she's also like a choir person and a jazz singer, and she was so amazing to me and so kind to me, and like helped me through all of my VCA auditions and like getting started on like improvising and playing in small ensembles and things like that. She was just so beautiful. And then yeah, teachers at VCA as well, like, and Andrea Keller, who you've interviewed before. She was like, oh my gosh, I just feel like she was so incredible, and she was such an amazing teacher, and I just feel like I was a bad student. Sometimes I just like didn't practice enough, didn't have her discipline, didn't have her vision, but like was just like hearing her play and hearing her talk about music was just like, just so awesome. So I would say she was definitely a mentor creatively. And then Peter Luscombe, now since joining the RocKwiz band and in like my professional life, he sort of like picked me out to be in that band and has like held my hand and like kept me on board, and now the training wheels are off. He's still there, and we still chat. Obviously we play together still all the time, but he's definitely been my biggest mentor in this sort of like more professional landscape. Yeah.
What about the VCA formal training? Has that come in handy?
Definitely. I teach as well, so I teach at Collards, I teach at Box Hill, and I definitely think having that formal training under my belt has allowed, you know, structures to be in place for me to like, you know, teach certain exercises. And, you know, I feel like if I hadn't had that, I would sort of be willy-nilly going, I don't really know how to do anything, this is just my way. So that's cool. But also like, yeah, I just sort of said before that I wasn't very disciplined with my practice in certain things, but I do think it definitely like allowed me to develop my own sort of work ethic, which I think has been very helpful. And also, yeah, no, in heaps of ways now I'm thinking about it, because I feel like, you know, going to music school for so many people was not a good experience. Like I found it to be a judgmental kind of environment, unsupportive. Maybe it's different now, but when I was there, I found the whole thing to be like incredibly supportive. Like, and I had a great group of friends. Teachers were really supportive, and even though I left there not feeling like I could be like some hot, you know, Melbourne jazz piano player, I definitely felt confident that I could find my place in the Melbourne music scene and the Australian music scene. And I feel like that formal training, yeah, definitely helped with that, building that confidence.
Who was the first high-profile artist that you played with?
Other than RocKwiz was, but you know, after that, it would have been either Tim Rogers or Angus and Julia. They were the first ones to sort of pluck me out of that thing onto the next thing in my professional, which is, again, now it's like looking back, I'm like, that's pretty cool. But at the time I was just like, okay.
In a lot of the videos and photos I've seen, you're playing a Nord 3 keyboard. Is that your main keyboard? It's
my main keyboard. It's my honey bear. It's my true love. Yeah, I take it everywhere. I play it all the time. Yeah.
Did you use the full array of its features?
I do. Yes, it's very, very useful. Like it's got a beautiful little synth engine. The piano sounds are all great. And the Hammond sounds pretty legit to me. I can't say anything but wonderful things about that instrument. And they're not telling me to say that. It comes from the heart.
Is there anything else that you use on stage?
I use my Prophet with some artists. I used to take heaps of stuff. So I have, other than my upright piano, I've got like the Prophet, I've got a Juno, I've got a Moog, little Fatty, I used to take them all everywhere in fly cases. So dumb. But now I sort of like, you can downsize, and I try and just like leave that stuff at home because, you know, a bit tiring on the old body, isn't it?
Let's talk about a few of the artists you've worked with.
Sure.
You mentioned RocKwiz as the first one. Who are some of the special guests that you enjoyed playing with?
Oh, I mean, for me, I just learnt most in that first couple of years from Vicar and Linda, who were doing the backing vocals at the time. And it's like, that was like a free lesson in how to be just like the most professional boss ever. Almost like I can't even remember any of the other artists that came on the show in that time. I was just like obsessed with what they did and learned so much from them. What other standout before? I don't know. Yeah, you know, like Megan Washington was a standout. Katie Noonan was a standout. Like so many. It's all like becoming a blur. All the Australian artists, just like one person. I can't pick them out individually. But yeah, definitely the Vicar and Linda experience was priceless.
Alex Lahey is an artist you've played with quite
I'm even repping her today, her merch. She didn't ask me to do that either.
How did that come about?
We went to high school together.
Oh, wow.
I know. I was talking about that cool big band that I play in. She played saxophone. But yeah, we were a few years apart, which, you know, sort of hinders the friendship, you know, in those years. But yeah, since then, when she did like her Animo thing and then a few different other outfits. But then when the Alex Lahey thing got serious, she reached out. It was like back in 2016 or 2017. And yeah, I was just stoked to hear from her. And she, you know, I so admired what she'd been doing and the work she'd been putting into her, you know, her output. So I was it was just great. And the people that she chose to be in that band, she was just really clever in this thing of like, okay, maybe I just don't want like, you know, the people who are unavailable or the biggest hotshots. Like I just really want to get a band together of people who are going to like love each other and who are going to work creatively together. And she just did. She just like chose all these personalities that were just like, it's this beautiful, harmonious hybrid. And so it's been the same band ever since. And, you know, it's always a pleasure doing gigs with her.
Yeah, she's played overseas quite a bit. Have you been able to tour overseas?
No, I feel like the keyboard player is like the last person you want to take overseas. It's like, you know, I was talking about all those keyboards before. It's just, you know, it's a liability. You don't want to take it. Easier to go on track.
David M. Weston is someone you've been playing with a bit recently. Tell me about David.
He's a beautiful songwriter and he's got big things coming his way. There's something about playing in his band that's been like... Often, I was talking about this recently, it's like often as a keyboard player, you're thinking like, am I playing a part or am I comping? Like how am I sitting in, or like how much improvisation, how much creativity can I bring to something, you know, constantly assessing that. And often in rock or poppy bands, like you've got a certain line you have to play or a certain, you know, you've got to stay within your lane. But there's something about Dave's music, also it's just, his songwriting I admire and I find it familiar. So I've really found a place in his music and I can improvise and I can like sort of do what I want each time. But within that, I also feel like I'm thinking about it from the brain of like sitting within the jigsaw, sitting within with a part, but like it can be spontaneous and it can be fun and a bit more like silly and free sometimes. And yeah, he's so up for me kind of like doing what I want to, like if I've got a solo, sometimes I just like find a like ridiculous synth sound and he's just like loving it. So I think, yeah, it's always cool when you can like bring humor into what you do. It makes it, fun.
You're currently working on your second solo album.
Yes.
Nothing Breaks, Nothing Mends was the first one.
Yeah.
What did you learn from creating that album that you'll be taking into the next one?
I reckon it's so much because it was made at a breaking point in my life a little bit, or definitely a change of the guards. You know, it's lockdown, things are changing. So I think for me, looking back on that in terms of like life story to like life story now, I'm like, holy, that's so different. And it's hard to separate those things sometimes, but I do think like like less is more, like sonically, production wise. I feel like it was because I had all this time in lockdown to make the record. I had 2 producers working with me. I'd sort of go between 2 people, and the whole thing was like, we had all this time and there was space in the music, so we just filled it, and it was so fun, like, you know, stacking harmonies, like layering sounds, orchestrating things. And so much of that record is just like, whoa. You know, I remember sending it off to Adam Rhodes to get mixed, and he was just like, okay, right, what is going on here? And so, yeah, it's kind of what I'd like to do maybe for this record. And I've been talking about it with Lawrence Folvig, who's producing it with me. It's like, can we say what we need to say with just a bit less? And, you know, I feel like that sentiment was definitely echoed in when I heard Hannah Cameron's album this year. I don't know if you checked her out, but like it was just like this, it's an incredible record. The songwriting is just so amazing, but also there's this sparseness in the production and the way that the instruments are all just like they've all just got their places, and and everything just like works together like a little organism, like a cell. And it's like, and you can hear, it's so crisp. You can hear everything so clearly. And I'm like, oh, that is what I'm talking about. And that's what I want to try and do. And I want to have more piano in it. More piano. That's really nice.
So where are you at with the album? Have you completed any songs?
Yes, I've completed like 2 or 3 songs. I'm actually further along than I thought I was, because I feel like I didn't really do much on it last year at all. I got a bit busy, felt a bit burnt out. But then like coming into it fresh this year and really spending some quality time on it, because I haven't been working a lot. It's like, oh, things are a bit further along than I thought, you know. All the song structures are all there, rhythm sections, beds are all done. So it's really just sort of like filling the spaces and tracking vocals and then mixing.
Yeah. Have you given yourself a deadline?
Yes. I think it's totally unachievable. But like July. July is when I'd love for it to just be like out of my life by July. And I think that is ambitious. But if I try and work to it, then it'll definitely be done this year. Yeah.
So once it's out, would you be looking to play the album live?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I would also just love to play more shows this year. I don't think I've played a band show since 2019. So my plan is to do a show in March, like a band show, just to sort of be like, hey, remember me? I'm still here and I still write my music. And then as the record comes out, release some singles, do a single launch, and then do an album launch. So ideally 3 shows this year would be just cool as, yeah.
When you look back at your music career, what are the strongest memories?
Oh, there's so many. It's so nice, a beautiful question. But I did this show at the recital centre in the Salon. I don't know, I can't remember, 2017 maybe. But I just released my first EP, and it was when I had started like really, really touring a lot, and so pivoted away from like my own stuff and my own performing. And then, I did the show at the recital centre. It was just like grand piano. So I arranged all my songs for just like kind of what I was talking about before, like really focused on the piano arrangements. So it was like a duet with the voice and the piano. And then I had 2 of my friends just singing backing vocals. And it was this like, it was just so special. And it was people came. And you know, when you have those, I just had one of those like flow state kind of days where it was like everything just was so intentional, and I was really proud of that show. And it was really just like a realignment of like creative priorities and things like that. So that was a good memory. Other than that, just like fantastic touring memories, like, being on a bus with RocKwiz for weeks on end, just driving up the coast, and they're the best people in the whole world. So it's like family holiday times 10. And then, other weird touring things too, like just going to South Africa for the weekend or to London for one show. And, it spins me out sometimes. Just like, it's crazy. It's so fun. Heaps of good times.
Yeah. What else is coming up for 2024? Are you working with any other artists as well?
It's sort of a blank slatey situation now. Well, the first few months are busy up until April. That'll be the RocKwiz shows, and I'm doing a show with Frente for the Adelaide Fringe. And Wilsn is doing some single launch. She's doing shows, headline shows. So doing a little bit of work in that. But yeah, nothing too strenuous and nothing too crazy. But I say that and then it changes in a second. So, but at this stage, it's sort of like, it's like it will be enough for me to get my record done, and hopefully something comes up for the second half of the year.
Yeah. So what are the goals for your solo career? Are there artists you look at and say, oh, I want a career like that?
I feel like I look at Amy Mann and I want a career like that. You know, just someone so established, so sure of themselves, and with a great podcast, you know? Yeah, but like where I see myself, you know, the goalposts shift constantly, but it would just be nice to get to a point where I can just like continue to make records and not be so in my head about it, and so I can churn them out a bit quicker, and there doesn't need to be this like massive, you know, rigmarole of a process. And you know, I don't really feel very attached to like succeeding in that realm and subscribing to like social media, and I think that isn't for me. So if I can sort of find this sustainable way to like be a musician that can earn some money and then like make my own music, just what I'm doing now, it's pretty cool.
What are you most proud of in your music career?
Saying yes to the things that I've said yes to. I'm so scared of everything all the time, and you know, I was always scared as a kid, and I think that's definitely like followed through into my adulthood. And I find people to be scary sometimes. I can feel like so socially awkward. So the fact that I just keep saying yes is like, I just couldn't be proud of myself for doing that.
Yeah. Clio Renner, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.